Okay, so the talk now, I would say it's traditional to do a talk in the days of practice, so part of the day, and whatever touches you in the talk stays, and whatever doesn't touch you, forget it. And it's about death and dying. And you could basically imagine 3 stages in our development of our relationship to death and dying. And the first stage would be denial. Don't want to know. And it's most of the world will be in that place. And most people will be in that place. And it turns death and dying into this kind of elephant in the room that's always there, and it's huge, but it's never really seen, approached, known. And you could say, well, it's all right. Why do I need to pay attention to death? But the trouble is that death works in us. It has pain because of its power to change our life as the elephant in the room that we don't see but is just filling the room. And the result of that is, as you know, we're busy, we're trying to be somebody, we're trying to have roles, we're trying to push away emptiness or not being somebody or not existing or avoiding, or we're busy with it all our life, actually. And it's about protection. We're busy with protection. We don't call it death, but we just do it. We're protecting ourselves in a million ways, and death is behind that, death and non-being. So I have to tell this story that I've told many times, and if you've heard it already 10 times, so this is the 11th time. And it is a story from my childhood. It just expresses it so well. True story. So when I was about 6 or 7, I suddenly got such a strong sense of death as being irreversible. That once you're dead, that's it. Finished this life. And it was really a big thing. And I remember I started to cry and scream, and I put myself in between 2 pieces of furniture in the room and just screamed my head off and stamped my feet and was angry and terrified. So this woman came in that happened to be a visitor in our house in London, and she said, "What are you screaming about?" I said, "About death. That it's inevitable and irreversible." And she said, "Don't worry, when you're an adult, you'll just get used to it and you'll get busy and you'll forget about it." I stopped crying. And then I started to cry again. I don't want to be an adult. I don't want to be an adult. I don't want to be an adult. I don't want to forget. So clearly we are moving, just the very fact that you're here together, that we're here together contemplating and ready for paying attention to death and dying, we're already not in that place of 100% denial. So we're at a place of working with it, with our wisdom, and part of that is all kinds of reflections, all kinds of thoughts and intimacy with it in different ways, and people we know died, and we move around it in many, many ways. And we begin to understand somewhere, I think all of us understand it somewhere, that our intimacy with death is able to enrich our life, makes our life rich, richer, fuller. And denial of death makes our life thinner and more limited, based around protection. So we can get close to death, kind of check out this elephant. What's this huge elephant that's filling the whole room? What is this? And as we begin to do that, things open up for us. One of the best, or a very beautiful description of this, so I don't have it that I can send to you, it's just a note that I made of a book written by Treya Wilbur. And some of you may know Ken Wilber, who's a great spiritual philosopher. And his wife, Treya, had cancer. And she wrote a book about her journey with cancer and to her departure. And she writes, I remember very well my attitude when I first discovered I had breast cancer. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. It's bound to happen sometime. If this is the way it is to be, so be it. But then I decided that this acceptance might be dangerous. I decided I had to choose very specifically and definitely to live, to force myself to choose to live. But that created more worry. I was calling the doctor more. It went with more fear of death. And so holding on to my life came to mean fear of letting go. And I discovered the secret is to hold everything a bit more lightly. A light touch lets me have a desire to live and be willing to let go when the time comes. Balance on a razor edge of will to live and acceptance. And worry is the clue to when we're off that balance. Living in the present is to live consciously with death. Death is the condition of having no future. If we live as if we have no future, we do not ignore death, we live it. There are these roses growing under my window. The relief when we kind of allow death to be in dialogue with our life, with us, the dialogue with death, creating the dialogue with life, there is a relief because we're no longer holding this denial place, this protection place, this fear place, and all the results that come from it, the projections, hashlachot. And this can be a relief. Okay. And in my time in this body, I've been pretty connected to quite a few people who were on their way to die. And so often there comes a time of readiness to meet death, which is experienced as a relief. Many times it can be just before someone dies, a day before, 2 days before, which I just now, a good friend of mine died, and I just have that, I found out that that's what happened. She died a beautiful death with a huge relief. It can be much before, can be now, we're all dying. Right now we can feel that relief. So there can be a joy when we're speaking about it and thinking about it and allowing it to be part of our life. I remember we used to do lots of workshops with weekend workshops with people who were very sick. And we were a little bit, as teachers, because, can we bring up the subject of death in groups in these workshops? And eventually we decided, yes, we could do it when people felt safe to talk and a bit more settled in the practice, and they'd had already a weekend of mindful awareness and presence, so they were ready kind of. And when we did that, they were the groups where there was most laughter, most joy, most people having jokes and having kind of ease, and the rooms were full of people laughing. So what are they talking about? Death and dying. But you could feel the relief that yes, we can talk about it, we can share it, we can tell funny stories about this stupid medical system, and we could tell kind of craziness of it all, the craziness of death and of life. So in the Buddhist world, there is lots and lots of encouragement to meet death while you're still aware, awake, and alive. And many monasteries have skeletons. The first thing you see when you come into a monastery, a Buddhist monastery, is a skeleton hanging there. And the 5 remembrances are chanted constantly, not just they're chanted at a funeral, but they're also chanted very often during the day, some monasteries every single day. And I will say them in English, and I'll put them on the board in Hebrew after the talk, so you can read them in Hebrew. And the 5 remembrances are a sense of a reality check that we're not in control. That as we're given this life, we are not in charge of it. We're given this life, and then we give it away again. And there's nothing we can do about that. So it's a sense of things are happening in a much bigger place. And if we allow that to be, we just allow that, we live with joy. And not with the illusion that I have to stop this and change that and want this and fix this and so on. So I'll read the 5 remembrances, wherever they are. In English. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. You should just feel that. I am of the nature to be sick. There is no way to escape from being sick. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions, or my karma, you could say, are the only thing that belong to me. I cannot escape the consequences. of karma. My actions are the ground on which I stand. And I was listening to talks recently by Avraham Lida in Jerusalem, who teaches Zohar and Kabbalah, and I was talking about it with Rachel, who's working with him. And there was a whole series of talks on sleep as a kind of death in a small dose, as a homeopathic dose of death. But there's a lot of interest in Jewish mysticism and in the Kabbalah. A lot of interest in sleep. They call sleep, if you recognize in sleep that it's the image of the tree of death, and when you sleep, you return to the womb of the Shekhinah, the goddess. It's, to me, a very beautiful image. When you sleep, your soul goes back to the womb of the goddess. And then you're born again when you wake into consciousness. And there's a lot in... So what we're talking about, this meeting with death is in every path, and it's not just the Buddhist. Maybe the Buddhist a bit more busy with it. But it's in all spiritual journeys. There's this issue of intimacy. And it starts really in the very first beginning of the Buddhist teachings, because death is one of the divine messengers that set the Buddha on his journey to awakening. So it's a messenger from God, divine. Called divine messengers. There was 5 of them, and one of them was death, dead body. And it propelled him to seek for the truth. And I think that that's the power of death, that it can really send us on a journey of questioning, of practice, of opening, of looking, of exploring, of asking, of opening life. There's a huge power to awaken as a divine messenger from above. And it's one of the practical results in the now is that if we get more intimate with death, we find ourselves more intimate with life. And I have a quote from Krishnamurti. I used to be very engaged with Krishnamurti teachings. And he says, live for one day, 1 hour, as though you were going to die, actually going to die the next hour. If you can live 1 hour as completely as that, you can live completely for the rest of your life. But to die is hard work. Not to die through disease and old age, that's not hard work, that's going to happen anyway. It's what we're all going to do. But if you die so that you are living fully in this hour, you will find there is an enormous vitality, a tremendous attention to everything, because this is the only hour you are living. You look at this spring of life because you will never see it again. You see the smile, you see the tears, You feel the earth. You feel the quality of a tree. You feel the love that has no object and no end. Then you will find that in this total attention, the me is not there, and that the mind, being empty, can renew itself. Then the mind is fresh, innocent, and such a mind lives eternally beyond time. So a few words about how to practice with that, how to work with that. First thing is that when we do experience fear of death, we can work with it. We can reduce a natural fear of death that human beings have, that we all have somewhere. We reduce it, the fear of death, a fundamental fear of death, by living well, by living a joyful life, by feeling that our life is worth something. I don't know if any of you remember Erica. But, you remember her? Yeah, she was beautiful. So she was a spiritual teacher. She lived here in Khalil. But one day, when after 90, I asked her, what would help you die happy? She said, to know that my life has been worthwhile and I've lived fully. And then I don't have a problem to die. And that includes love. The sense of love. The sense of a deep love. Because as it says in the Song of Songs, Shir Shirim, love is stronger than death. And then, in terms of our spiritual practice, what really helps deeply is non-attachment. Just what Patachara said. What is happening is not me, the non-identification. It's not me that I have to pay attention to, look after, stop to die, not to die, live longer, have a future, like Treya Wilbur says. It's the me. If we step out of that me, then everything changes. Fundamentally, deeply. This sense that I am not the body. The body is not a possession that I want to control and not to die. It's hugely liberating, spiritually and also in terms of death and dying. I'm not the body. So, not easy to practice that directly, but actually all our practice goes there. So if you read non-dual teachers like Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi, if you listen to the non-dual Advaita teachers, they will all go to that place. I'm not the body. Body's just body. Everything arises and goes. The body changes. The body comes and goes. Just happens. Body just happen. And its experiences just happen by themselves. And so we live more in a kind of on the boundary between existence and non-existence. By this sense of non-attachment, not hanging on to my body and my things and my world and what I need and what I don't need and so on. And we live more and more in the present with less sense of ownership, of control, then we're living in a world of existence, non-existence all the time. And that's a really fascinating place to live. So everything is moving and changing. So everything is gone. It's died. The word I said just now is died. The Stephen that said it also died. In non-existence. Existence happens and gone. We don't need to hang on to anything. And at that place, we're living in this place which is bigger than the need for existence or the need for non-existence. That something should happen or something shouldn't happen. Or we want it to be there or we don't want it, or we want it to stop changing, going. And it's the present begins to take over more powerfully, more strongly, and we live always on the edge of existence, non-existence, or knowing, not knowing, awareness, non-awareness, on the sort of edge place. So there's another stage beyond that, which is a deeper place, which I've divided all this into three. First place is non-awareness, denial, and so on, the elephant in the room. The second place is having a kind of relationship with the elephant. And in, out, knowing, not knowing. Sometimes as a human being, we're afraid of death. Sometimes we're afraid, sometimes we're not afraid, sometimes we meet it, sometimes this, sometimes that. So it's a middle ground of bringing death into our life and seeing that we live a richer, more powerful, more present, bigger awareness because of that. But then there's a third stage, if you like, which is a much more, I would say, existential place. And that's very much the answer that the Buddha gave to Patachara. And Patachara came hugely distressed to the Buddha, and the Buddha woke her up, kind of gave her a real hit of cosmic wisdom and said, do you know anything about your child that died? Why it came, how it came, and how it's gone, and why it's gone, and if it's gone, and do you know anything about any of that? And that really is, I would say, a deeper place. And and it's a place where we really experience death more. We die before we die. And it's kind of a place we need to go there. Die before we die. And the best quote I have is from this Dharma teacher that once was asked, and he was sick, and he was asked, what's your lesson for everybody? And he said, I'll give it to you in one sentence. You've got to get your dying done early. And there's a truth in that. So we need, in our spiritual life, it's a little bit like why there's skeletons in the monasteries and so on. We need deep experiences of the not, of ain, of not. We need deep experiences of non-existence. We need to make the not very alive for us, and the yes very alive, and the difference between them. And it's very much what happens in meditation can happen to us quite deeply. We go to places of not. Not me, not this, not that. Spaces in between, emptiness. So Emptiness is a big word, and I don't want to go into it now, but it's, shall we say, falling into the place where we're not identifying a world that we know and constructing a world that we know. It's falling into a place of zero, if you like, ground zero, like in New York. And as I say, the best story I have is the one I tell all the time every year in the Yom Kippur retreat about Jonah, because that's what happened to him. He went into the zero place in the belly of the big fish. After going down and confused and afraid of, he went down into his zero place. Couldn't go any lower. Nothingness, emptiness. And then he came out of it as a big soul, able to live fully. So it's very much in the middle of the Dharma practice is to discover what it means, not just to we have formations, constructions, thoughts. Okay, thought, form in the mind, or feelings, or constructions. What is it like without them? What's it like in the world of of emptiness? What's it like? And however we touch it, it will help us, because it's little bits of not, of dying, of the other side of existing. So we find ourselves able to be moving from one to the other more easily. Existing, non-existing, existing, non. Something arising, a thought, and then gone, empty. Something comes, something goes, something comes, something goes. And our spirit gets bigger. We live in all of these worlds. And there's a lot of encouragement about that in the practice. Just what the way the Buddha described experience is, it's just a mass of bubbles. The body is just, if you look at it, it's just a mass of bubbles, passing, bubbling, moving, nothing. Thought is nothing, transparent. The thought is a transparent. We think it's a form, like, oh, I have to do something tomorrow. It's very serious. It looks like a form. But if we look at it, it's totally transparent. We see right through it. It doesn't have any form at all. But we believe it so. We believe it so that gives it form. Any thought. If we believe it so it gives it form. But in itself it has no form. So it's an important, however we take it, whichever place we take it, it's important to have that, somewhere that sense that there is no future. As Treya Wilbur said, I discovered from my breast cancer that there's no future. We have less future than we thought. But that's a thought. Future is a thought. We assume we have a future. Where is that? It's just a thought. Less future. So that people say, well, what is it aging? Less future. So, what does that mean? Less future. Here I am, existing at this minute, or existing, non-existing. Don't tell me about less future, more future. Who's measuring? What's it mean? It's just thoughts which are transparent and empty. So it does take us to this place, if we go a bit deeper into the mystery of it. What's pulling us? What is it that's making us arrive in this body? Do we know anything about that? What is it that made us be here as a living being? Do you have any idea? And what is it that makes us go again? certainly when we're a living being, we can feel all our body is trying to get back to nothingness again. Everything gets sick, it gets chaotic, it goes to pieces. It's just it's almost like the body wants to return to the universe and go to pieces. And we say, no, no, stop. I want to be the same as I was then. But the body says, I want to go back to become carbon again and water again and oxygen again. The body's wanting to leave. It doesn't mean that we don't cry. If we lose someone, we cry. It's natural. We are human beings. We let us cry. If we feel sad, let us cry. We can feel pain, it's for sure. But where is that in our consciousness? Well, how much is that part of? What do we build out of it? How do we hold that? So of course we cry in loss or pain. We lose someone close to us. It's painful. We cry, we can feel compassion. But hopefully we're in a bigger place. So I think one of the coming to the end of the talk, one of the messages we can get from contemplating existence, non-existence, or death and a life, is that a kind of commitment or a clarity that we want to live without resistance. That we live fully is to live without resistance, without stopping things, without trying to control everything, allowing things to be what they are, and going out and doing what we need to do in life. And it really helps us join the stream. Like, again, Patanjara, I chose this text because it's kind of got everything in it. What awakened Patanjara was she just saw water going down, trickling down, enough, in the stream of life-death. Stream of life and death. Can we live in that? I once saw a film of an old Zen monk in a monastery, and he was at some point getting sick, and all his students came to him and said, "Master, Master, don't leave us. We want to get you better. What can we do? How can we get you better? Don't leave us. What do we do without you?" And he said, "I can't leave you. Where can I go? There's nowhere else I can go. I can't leave you because where can I go? The whole universe I'm the whole universe. The universe and me are here now. I can't go anywhere. This body can die, but so he didn't die actually. He got better. But if you talk about awakening, nibbana, awakening is that sense of belonging, that the universe and you are one thing. And so there's nowhere actually that you can go. The universe and you are not separate. The universe made this body. If we're busy with the body, then we're busy with this form. But if we see things appearing, disappearing, including this body, we're back in the kind of universal perspective, point of view of beyond the person, beyond time. So in the tradition, the monks especially talk a lot about deathless, no death. And basically that's what they mean. That the death of the body is only a big issue for us if we are busy with the body as survival. And if we're no longer busy, then everything is coming and going, including the body. Everything. The stream of life. And if we're back in that stream of life, then in a way, it makes a question mark over this thing called death. So that's on a deeper level, but it's certainly there in the spiritual life. So I think I'll stop at that point, and we'll have a couple of minutes of quiet. Thank you.